I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on Altice. You can see this show every Saturday at 10 a.m. on channel 115. You can also see it on YouTube by going to my YouTube page, Phil Jusino, P-H-I-L-J-U-S-I-N-O, and you can see all the old shows. The new show goes on about a week later. So if you miss it, you can always go to my YouTube page. Got two guests tonight. Dawn, can't give her last name, but she is a nurse, an LPN, in a facility here on Long Island, a senior facility, and Donato Panico, who owns, with his dad, Panico's Community Market over on Terry Road in Smithtown. So we're going to talk about a day in the life of a business owner and a nurse here on Long Island in the era of COVID-19. Let's get to it. The first guest is Dawn. Do we have her on the line? Okay. While we're waiting for that, next week we got a great show planned. I'm going to be talking about a documentary actually that I saw that has to do with diet and exercise. It's called Game Changers. So next Saturday at 10 a.m., 1:15, you want to see that show. Dawn, are you on?
Yes.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Am I coming in loud and clear?
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Now, Dawn,
Yes,
you're a nurse in a facility on Long Island. Can you say the town or no?
No.
Okay. And how long you been there?
At this place, 3 months.
Oh, okay. And before that, you were at another facility?
Yes, for 3 years.
Wow, okay. Now, I call these places, I guess they call them nursing homes, senior facilities. What is the terminology that you use?
Rehabilitation center.
Okay. Now, it's fair to say most of the people there are elderly?
Yes.
Right. Do you have anybody that's younger?
Not all.
That's, let's say, 30, 40 years old that was injured in an accident, or most of the people are seniors?
There's a lot that, well, my prior place did have a lot of people that were younger. You know, you had the Down syndrome population.
I see.
You know, you had a lot of them.
Right.
You did have your older people. You had people that were just in accidents.
And
You know, I mean, they don't stay in a hospital forever.
Right, exactly. Now, how has COVID-19, this pandemic, affected those kinds of facilities that you work in and other facilities here on Long Island?
The facilities set up for. Certain facilities are set up for, say, residents that are on vent.
You're breaking up a little bit. You were coming in clear a second ago. Did we lose you?
Can elderly sleep at home.
Okay. Dawn?
Uh,
I don't know if you're moving around, but a little while ago I could hear you perfectly clear. Now you're breaking up.
Okay, you there? You hear me?
You're perfect. Don't move. Okay. So you were saying?
So, like, some of those homes are only set up for people to come there for rehab.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not set up for people to have, like, you know, respiratory issues like with COVID. So somebody who went there for a broken hip to get rehabilitated to go home, we're thinking maybe possible 3-month stay with rehabilitation. Now they get COVID and they're there longer or have to go out to the hospital now. And we don't know when they're coming back, and there's no bed holds in New York anymore. So if you go out, we don't hold your bed for you anymore.
I see. Now, I know Governor Cuomo signed the executive order that these facilities here in New York had to take COVID patients. Now, do you recall if he signed that very early on, or that was during the pandemic? In other words, before you guys knew what hit you, did he sign that executive order, or were people coming into your facility and then the order was signed? So there might have been people that came in the meantime. Do you know what I'm asking?
If I heard you correctly, I would say that he signed the order in the middle of the pandemic versus before. I'm not really sure on that aspect.
I see.
You know?
But before he signed it, let's say before he signed it, what was the protocol for a facility like yours to take somebody that you were told has COVID-19? Would you say no? Would you take the person? What would you do?
Well, any facility can decide if they want a resident or not. You know, when a resident is going out for rehabilitation, the hospitals put out a call to the nursing homes, and they'll tell them the criteria of the resident, and the nursing home will decide if they can meet this resident's goals
Right.
and apply for this resident to come to our or whatever facility. Now the resident will pick what facility they want, and then we'll get the say it's our facility, that we'll get the paperwork, and then we'll get ready for that resident to be there. We're usually told about an hour or two before when we're getting a resident, but most before COVID, I mean, like, we wouldn't know that they had any thing, because they would come to us stable. We would have their history of what was going on with them, why they were in the hospital, and why they're coming to our facility, and what our goal is for them.
Right. But now, after Governor Cuomo signed the executive order, was your facility told you're getting a patient and that patient has COVID-19?
To my knowledge, I
Yes.
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if, we have COVID patients. I do know that.
Okay.
But how, that aspect is not my knowledge per se.
Now, when a patient came in, when I spoke to you the other day, a patient would come in, and you said there were certain procedures regarding quarantining that patient.
Yes, when we would get a new resident, and this is for most facilities, you quarantine those residents for 14 days. They will be in a room by themselves. It's usually somewhere where there's double doors, so that it's a closed-off area from the rest of the nursing home for the rehabilitation center. And basically, you would have your nurses and aides that had to work back there, which we would gown up, gown down from each room.
Right. Now, you'd quarantine them no matter
what.
what.
Quarantined for 14 days.
Right, no matter what, whether you thought they had it or not, they were quarantined.
Right.
I see. Now, when they would come in, their temperature must have been taken, right? There must have been certain things they looked for, but didn't matter. If they came in and they weren't coughing and they seemed healthy and they didn't have a temperature, they were still being quarantined, correct?
Yes,
Right.
They were.
Now, did you have tests, let's say March, April? Were there tests available to test these patients to see if they definitely had it or not?
Yes, there was tests available.
All right. So, but again, whether they had it or not, they were still quarantined. So the test really didn't matter.
Right. I mean,
You were assuming they had COVID.
Residents, when a lot of facilities were getting residents, which was, I would say, mid-March, is when we were you have to take them. That's when we started seeing residents coming into the nursing homes and we were told they have COVID.
So you were told at some point that you were getting patients that had it. Okay. Right. And again, you quarantined. Now, at the end of 14 days, were they tested or they were just put into a regular room?
They were tested, and they, every day, every shift, there's 8 hours in a shift. So they would get their temperature, their blood pressure, their oxygen rate, everything would be checked.
Now, were there enough tests to go around to test these people at the end of the 14 days, let's say, or when they got there?
Yes, we always had tests.
Oh, so that was not an issue, because I know you read the papers or you hear the news and they say we didn't have enough tests. That wasn't an issue as far as you saw.
Not for what we were doing, no.
Okay. Now, what was, you were telling me also the arduous protocol that you follow. So when you get to work to do your 8-hour shift, what precautions did you have to take? What did you have to wear? What did you have to do to start your shift?
Well, I wear a head covering and a mask before I even walk into the facility, and I would sanitize my hands. Then I get into the facility, and they take my temperature, and they ask me a series of questions. Has I been with anybody that has gone, international travel? How am I feeling? Do I have a cough? Do I have watery eyes? Am I sneezing? Do I feel congested? And while they're telling me and I'm answering the questions, they're taking my temperature. After I take my temperature, and I have an N95 mask on as I'm walking into the building. I put I hand sanitize again. After I hand sanitize, I go to whatever unit they're going to tell me to go to. If it's a COVID unit, I have to gown up before I go into that COVID unit. Hand sanitize again, gown up, and then I can go into the COVID area to relieve the nurses that I have to take over from there.
Now, this is a daily thing. When you go to work, what you just described is every day.
Yeah, and that's just what I do going into work.
Right. Now, when your shift ends, what do you have to do?
Oh, I have to give report to the next nurse. As I leave the facility, I have to de-gown. So I get the gown off, and it goes in a special area, which is a bin with a black bag that we close up. Then I leave the facility. As I leave the facility, I go to my car. Once I get to my car, I have another pair of sneakers in my car that I use, that I take my sneakers that I've worn all day at work off, put my other sneakers on. I have Clorox bleach that I bleach the sneakers on and put them in a plastic bag. Hand sanitize again. All my stuff goes into the trunk. I drive home. Once I get home, I go into my back of my house. I strip, wrap myself in a towel that I've left from me there the prior day, that morning. I go right into the shower. I do not even allow my kids to touch me or nothing. I just go right into the shower. I take the hottest shower you can possibly take, and I scrub everything. Upon getting out of the shower, I am bleaching my whole bathroom down, wrapping my clothes that I need to wear in a plastic bag, and then running to the basement to wash them. Then I start my dinner for my kids.
That sounds exhausting. You have to do this every single day you work.
Yes.
Okay, and everybody else who works in that kind of facility has to do
Oh,
that.
yeah. All the nurses are doing it.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. Right now, with the way things are going, do you see things getting worse before they get better, or are things getting better now? As far as the facilities.
The numbers are definitely going down, but I think in the nursing home setting, things are gonna we're gonna be on protocol for a while with wearing masks and gowning, and I see that staying for a little while.
Right. And what about a vaccination? Let's just say in the next year or so they come up with a vaccination. Do the elderly people, just like with the flu vaccination, do they all get it? So at your facility, are they required, the patients required to get flu
Every
vaccination?
facility does not. What happens is we'll ask. They have to give consent. You don't have to get anything. As a nurse, I'm even told in whatever facility I'm in, they recommend that you get a flu shot, but you don't have to. But if you don't get a flu shot, you do have to wear a mask. I don't know what's going to happen with this COVID shot, but
Right.
I can tell you right now, this first year that they have it, I don't think I want to get that shot. I'd have to look at everything before I make a definite decision. But you have a right to refuse.
Right.
And if we in the nursing homes go up to a resident and say, hey, we have a COVID vaccine and the flu vaccine and your pneumonia vaccine, they could say yes or no to any of them. They have that right. That's a patient's right.
Right. Now, what is your experience as far as, let's say we don't have a COVID, but a flu vaccination in years past? Do most of the patients opt for it or not?
A lot of them do. In my last facility, I had 20 residents because I was the nurse on that unit, and only one out of the 20 said no, and I get my flu shot. I get it because of work. But, I've seen a lot of people getting it, but I've also seen a lot of people say, no, I don't want it.
Now, in your facility, in the facilities in the area where they have COVID patients, do they go on a ventilator at the facility, or they take them to a hospital if it gets that bad?
It depends. In the facilities that I worked at with the ventilators, if a resident is destatting, that means their oxygen rate is going down, we have to send them out to a hospital. Nursing home setting cannot intubate somebody in the nursing home.
Okay,
they have to be sent up to the hospital. Once they're sent out to the hospital and they're intubated, if they do require to be on a vent, depending on what type of vitals and everything they have, it's up to the hospital and the nursing homes. If that resident can be moved to a nursing home, because residents are usually on ventilators. There's only certain nursing homes that actually even do that.
And yours doesn't?
No, it does not.
So they need it, they go to the hospital, and sometimes after they get better, they can come back to the facility.
Yeah.
Okay. And in your facility, Has a lot of people ended up in the hospital that had COVID?
No, we were able to contain quite a bit of it.
I see. Now, obviously,
We
the
were
people.
fighting it. We were fighting real well.
Good. Now, obviously, the people that you take care of are among the most vulnerable, because they
Yes.
say the elderly, people with pre-existing conditions, and you may have people that are 70, 80, 90 and have a heart condition, have diabetes. So those are the most vulnerable in our society in places where you work, correct?
Yes.
And you're still able to manage. Like you said, you didn't have anybody that had COVID that went to the hospital. That's pretty good. I'm not a doctor or
I mean,
nurse, but it sounds pretty good to me.
To my knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I'm on the type of nursing I do, I go from unit to unit. I'm considered what you call a float. So, to my knowledge, I mean, there were people, yeah, did they go out to the hospital? Of course. But to my knowledge, I mean, did we have deaths? Yeah, we had deaths.
I see. Now, those are the people that died at the hospital after they were taken there?
Yes.
Okay.
And some of them were considered to have COVID. You know, they did have COVID.
I see.
But would I say that that was the reason they died? No, I can't say that for sure.
Now, what I've been reading is that if the person dies of COVID, the hospital gets more money for that. Is that accurate?
I've heard that too, but I don't know for sure if that's accurate.
Okay. Now, if a person has COVID, and let's say they die of a heart attack or they die of a stroke or something, it would still go down as a COVID death if they had COVID?
That's where the controversy is, because there's people that have died of massive heart attack or of C. diff or whatever they had, but if they had COVID too, that had to go on the death certificate too. But the death certificate, it's not usually just one cause. It'll list what causes are in there.
Right. But if COVID is one of them, that would be listed.
Yes, that'll be on the death certificate as well.
Okay. Right. Now, when someone has COVID, obviously you have to report it, right? What is the protocol for when you find out a patient has COVID of reporting it? What agency gets that information?
That's information I don't know.
Okay. Now, you obviously have doctors in the facility, right?
Yes, we do.
All right. And they take care of the patients just like the nurses and everybody. So it's a team
if
effort.
I suspect a patient has COVID, I have to have data to show me that. So the first thing I'm going to see is a spike in the temperature. Somebody who hasn't had a temperature, now all of a sudden they have a temperature. Well, I'm going to report that to my supervisor right away and say, resident has a temperature, just letting you be aware of it. This is what the oxygen rate was. This is what their blood pressure was. This is what their respiratory rate was. What do you want me to do? You know, and then they'll give me instruction on what they want to do. And then we call the doctor and let him know, and then he gives us the orders on what he wants done.
Right. Now, would there be a test given at that time if they suspect the person has it?
Yeah, they'll give you, if the doctor orders it, yeah.
Okay, so it's up to the doctor. So the nurse wouldn't, on her own or his own, give a test. It would be up to the doctor to say it, right?
Yeah, we have to have an order.
I see. And that comes from a doctor.
Yes.
Like a
Or the
prescription
PA.
almost, right? It has to be a doctor's orders to take the test.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I think I had asked you something like this before, but where do you see things, let's say, in the next 3 to 6 months in your facility? It'll still be people taking the utmost precaution?
I hope not. I can't say what's going to happen in 3 to 6 months. I can only comment on what's happening now, and I really hope not that we're still doing this in 3 to 6 months.
Now, family
But
members...
from what a lot of the people are telling me, they think we will be.
You might be. Now, family members can't come in and visit, correct?
Right.
At all. So since this whole thing hit the fan, those people there have not had any visitors.
Right.
They can get phone calls, of course. What about, I've seen news reports where maybe someone is on the other side of a glass window. Has that happened in your facility?
Yes, we've done that. We've done Skype calls, Zoom.
And people on the other side of a glass window.
Mm-hmm.
How are these patients, like I know some of them maybe don't get a lot of visitors to begin with, but let's say the ones that have family that comes and visits, their psyche, mentally, how are they faring with not being able for months to have any
Well, of course they'd be
meaningful
sad.
visits?
When we see something like that, we react on it right away. We let social work know. Social workers come in and, we make sure that we spend time with that resident and talk to that resident and make sure that that resident knows that we are here for them. I mean, I had a resident where they were really upset. The woman's over 100 years old,
Oh my
and
God.
she was,
This is tragic.
she's done. And she told me that. And basically what I did was I just, gave her the emotional support she needed, and I listened, and I let her vent on me, and I explained to her the reasons why we're doing this, and, I did the best I could for her, and she actually was quite appreciative of it, and it seemed a lot better. But will she have a meltdown? It's like a 2-year-old when you tell them no, like
I know.
people in general will have a meltdown, and they need emotional support. And then a lot of the times they can recoup and, move on. But, this is hard. I mean, I can't imagine not hugging my mom for 3 months.
I know. And it's hard for the family because let's say
It's
you're
terrible on the family.
75
Absolutely
years
terrible.
old and you got a 100-year-old mother in a facility that you're used to seeing frequently, and you can't even, a phone call's not the same. And you can't even
It's
go
not.
over there and be in the same room with them. You can't even do the social distancing mask thing, right? You can't. Right? And now, do you have a psychiatrist on staff or available to come in? I would think so.
Most nursing homes do. They have a psychiatrist, a therapist, social work. Every nursing home that I know of does.
Okay. Now, as far as allowing people to visit, I know we're not there yet. Who makes that call? Is it the facility? Is it still the governor saying, Suffolk County is still shelter at home? Who's going to ultimately make that decision where they could say, okay, yeah, your son or daughter, they can come visit you now? Who's going to make that call?
I believe that has to do with the governor, because we're not allowed to have residents in there. I mean, obviously we have, if there's an issue where a resident is going to pass, going to expire, as we call it,
Right.
they might allow that family member to come in to see that person, where they gown them all up and let them in. But I haven't seen it.
Wow. Because, we keep hearing, at first we heard don't wear the mask, then we heard wear the mask. Let's say someone put a mask on. Let's say one of their sons or daughters put a mask on, gloves, whatever you want to do, wear the same thing you wear, and came into the room or some bigger room and kept more than 6 feet. Now, I guess you're not even allowed to do that because the governor said you can't do that. But if all those things work, and we're told they do, the mask, the social distancing, why couldn't a person, let's say where they eat dinner, I guess it's a bigger room than their living quarters, why couldn't they do that? Is it possible? I know you can't. Is it possible?
For what?
To do that, to say, let's say the governor said tomorrow it's up to the individual facility. Could you see a facility saying, okay, in this pretty large room, the son is going to come in, he's going to have a mask on, he's going to have gloves on, whatever. We're going to make sure that he doesn't have COVID, and he's going to sit in that chair, and 10 feet from him, or 6 feet or 8 feet, we're going to wheel in his mother. Is that doable?
I don't know. Because people do, people, they were told not to do something and they do it.
I know.
You
And
know
you
what I
have the
mean?
liability aspect, because God forbid, there could be a lawsuit down the road.
There
But
could be, there really could be.
Well, I
and,
could draft something as an attorney,
like you
make
see
it
people
ironclad.
at the beach, they were
I saw
told to
that.
stay 6 feet away from each other, and they're not.
Right, but
They're
in
not
more
doing
of
it.
but in a controlled facility, let's say, where you have security, if you said, okay, one person at a time, have a seat, that's where you're going to sit, that's where you're going to sit, you're not going to get up before we wheel your mother out after the meeting, you could probably do it.
Oh, sure.
The beach and a party, that's nuts. I saw that. And, those people are not winning over any converts to say open things up, because you look at that, even a person like me who believes in personal responsibility, but personal responsibility means try not to infect your fellow man. And You hear about this. They have these parties, and the people are just like nothing. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Exactly.
Not yet. And
Oh, I agree with you. You know, you tell people no, and they go and do it. A person is fine; they can do it. People are
right,
panicky, and they don't listen.
right. And some of them want to make a point, and
Yeah.
it's not the thing to do. You
And you
got
have
it.
a lot of people that are followers. You have the few troublemakers that'll start the whole thing, and then you have the
Yeah.
followers. And it's what happens.
I call
It's
it like,
sad.
it's almost like the pitchfork mentality. You ever see those old movies like Frankenstein, and you get a whole bunch of normal people, and you whip them up into a frenzy. The next thing you know, they all have pitchforks and they're attacking somebody.
Yes,
And
that's exactly what happens.
instead of individually, they're probably smart enough to do the right thing. But they go to a party, maybe they get a couple of drinks in them, and then all of a sudden you see it and you look and you be like, what are they doing?
Most people are followers. I mean, if you were to say to them, hey, I want all of you to get on this boat, they'll do it.
Right.
You get the individuals who are considered the troublemakers who will run away and say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get on that boat.
Well, you look at even when you go into a store, let's say a supermarket or Price Club or something like that. You have to wear a mask, right? You can't get in there. If you get in there, I saw some lady in Target, it was on the news, she was almost verbally assaulted because she didn't have a mask.
Yeah.
So you got to have a
I
mask.
accidentally almost walked into a store today without a mask on.
You got to be careful.
My daughter and I were walking in and we were talking, and my daughter had noticed people were looking at us weird. I didn't notice. And she goes, Mom, we're not wearing masks. I'm like, oh my God.
Put 'em on.
And we raced back to my car to get it.
Now, but people, yes, they're wearing a mask because they have to. If you didn't have that rule, there'd be a lot of people walking in there without a mask. Now, we could debate whether the mask works. I've seen some people with the mask, their nose is exposed, all kinds of silly stuff. I saw a person lick their finger under their mask to open a produce bag. I talked about that on one of my prior shows. Not good.
No.
And think about it. Let's say somebody has the mask on and they're touching produce. Now, I keep hearing different things, but let's say they touch a melon or they touch an apple or something, and then you touch it a couple of seconds later, you might pick that up.
Yeah.
So we don't know.
But that's why you bring your hand sanitizer with you in your pocket, and when you get home, you wash all your fruits and vegetables.
And don't touch your face before you do that.
Yeah. People touch their face every 20 seconds. They don't even realize they do it.
Right. And with the mask, they're always adjusting it, and you're touching this, and now if someone.
It's awful. It's so itchy.
Now, also the eyes. Now, if you don't have the shield, I have one, I don't use it, I wear the mask. But if you're, let's say, in a supermarket and someone coughs, now it's not an airborne as much as it is, the particles can float for a period of time. But they could get into your eyes, I would think, right?
Yeah, it can get into your eyes and go right directly to your brain.
So the mask might protect you in most cases, but it's not a panacea. It's not going to solve all your problems. That's why if we're going to have a vaccine, let's get one, let's get it tested.
I mean, you're talking about with the eye shield, like somebody would have to directly cough or sneeze, like right into your eye. And that's what the shield is for, because
Correct.
when you're working in a hospital setting,
Oh, yeah.
you are dealing with people who they're very sick. So when they cough or sneeze, they might, do that. So that's why we wear the shields, to protect us for that reason.
Yeah, you have to do that. But Dawn, I really want to thank you. You've been very, very informative. I've learned some things because even though you have an idea of what a nursing home is all about, we've all probably been in one at one time. You really gave us a little bit of insight, what it's like to work in one of those facilities in the era of COVID, what it's like to get there, to start your shift, what it's like to leave. I've heard all kinds of things, and it sounds exhausting. So you might do an 8-hour shift, but maybe you're spending 9 or more hours prepping and leaving. When you get home, you have to have that towel ready, and you can't touch your.
And I mean,
you can't touch your kids
set
right
up
away.
the night before. Like, I'm going to set up after I make dinner. I'm going to set up my lunch because I bring my own lunch to work. I won't eat any food brought in from outside. I mean, family members that are sending food in, it's great. but I'm not eating any of it because I don't know who's prepared it.
You got to be
And
careful.
so I got to stay safe.
Yeah.
I got 3 kids that need me,
Yeah,
like.
you do. And what I'd like to do is maybe in a month or so bring you on a little update, see how things are going. Hopefully, the curve is flattened. They call it, flattening the curve, and hopefully this is just a bad memory for a lot of people. It's tragic. People are dying out there. It's a tragic
I pray that
thing.
it is just a bad memory, and that when I have my grandchildren, I can tell them about the big pandemic of 2020.
Right. Because this is nothing like, I'm 55 years old and I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Even I saw pictures, believe it or not, from the Spanish flu, which was like 1917, 1918, and there were people at a sporting event that had masks on. So even then, when hundreds of thousands of people died, maybe even more than that, they still went out and they lived their life. They took precautions. You can't shut us down forever. You know that.
No.
I see you on Facebook. You see me on Facebook, so you know how we feel about these things. You can't just shut a country down for 4 months and expect to open things up and everything will be rosy. But you got to protect these people, especially the vulnerable ones. And you're on the front line. I want to thank you for calling in. Thank you for taking the time, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay?
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Everybody stay safe.
Take care. Danny, if you can get Donato Panico on, I'd appreciate it. That was Dawn. We didn't use her last name or mention the facility because of certain confidentiality rules that apply. But very, very informative. Like I said, I learned a couple of things that I wasn't aware of, and that's why some of the questions I asked, I didn't know the answers to. A lot of times I ask questions, I know the answer, I just want to inform the viewing audience. But something like this, even though you might think you know what's going on, things change. All the things she has to do to keep herself safe and her family safe, pretty amazing. Dan? Okay, we're waiting to bring Donato Panico. Donato is part owner of Panico's Community Market. That's over in Terry Road in Smithtown, not too far from that place. In fact, I'm drawing a blank on it, right on Terry Road and 347. They have weddings there, right down the road. You can't miss it. Is he on? We have Donato.
Yes.
Donato, please. I'm drawing a blank. What's the name of that facility on the corner right near your shop?
The Watermill Inn.
I can't believe I forgot that. The Watermill Inn. I had a senior moment. I'm not a senior yet, but the Watermill Inn. I've been there many times. Now, Donato, is it you and your dad that own Panico's Community Market?
My dad and I, yes.
Okay. And you've been there, what, since the 80s?
1984.
You opened in 84, because it's on the sign. I remember seeing it one time, but 1984. Now, you had closed down for a while, right?
Yeah, we closed down for 18 months.
Was that after 9/11?
No, that was just recently, 2017 we closed.
Okay. Because I know when 9/11 happened, you were down there with a truck and you were feeding the first responders, correct?
Horrible day.
Yeah. And when you did that, would your dad run the place while you were there in Manhattan?
My dad was at the store and I was in the background.
Okay. And what is it like for a small business owner? Now, I guess because you sell food, you're considered essential, but for a period, you weren't having people come into the store, correct?
Today's the first day we reopened the public.
Donato, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, we were doing curbside pickup. What
Now,
this was, and my dad's 78 years old, so we didn't want to take any chances.
oh, sure. Now, when did you start curbside pickup? When did you make the decision, all right, things are pretty bad out there, let's do curbside pickup? Was it March?
After the first week, I said, oh my gosh, and we were getting bombarded with people over, people didn't have any product in the store, so they were coming in, so we decided after that, so we can serve them better, pull the orders for them and have them ready for them when we just couldn't keep up for the first 2 weeks. And then we made some adjustments. We started seeing how it was going, and we made some adjustments.
Now, what are some of the things you had to do? You call adjustments. Some of the things you had to retool the store to protect the people. What did you have to do? Put up like a plastic covering of some kind?
Well, we just did that yesterday, so we're able to open it. We're letting 2 people into the store at a time, but we were just doing curbside. We got masks for all our guys, and we kept the same crew. We had a very small crew, only 4 of us here, and we kept the same 4 people. We didn't want other people around us. Deliveries came in, they were left at the back door, and we unloaded them ourselves. We did a lot of things to keep people away in the event, just to protect my dad. Really so much, just
Sure.
to protect him, because he's a senior and 78 years old. They don't want anything to happen to him.
You got to be careful. Now, were you? I guess many of your loyal customers stuck with you.
Yes, they did. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I think it's fair to say a lot, maybe with the exception of like a Home Depot or Costco, a lot of small businesses suffered. You were fortunate that you were selling food, but like stores that sell jewelry, even law offices, we're supposed to be closed. I modify things a little bit to make sure that I service my clients. But a lot of small businesses are really hurting, right? I'm sure you see
Without a
it.
doubt. Without a doubt, many of the pizzerias, the Italian restaurants, it's really rough out there, and the prices, unfortunately, the supply is really down, and the prices are really high. So there's a lot of people are hurting.
Sure.
They're not doing so well, and it's the prices are astronomical right now, and it's not our fault. It's the supply chain.
I was going to ask you about the supply chain. So you order wholesale, right? You order, and
Yes.
the prices now that they are setting very high. So when
Very
you get
high.
when
I've
you get
never seen anything like this.
so when you get the product, I think you were telling me earlier, like I'm just using round numbers. Let's say an item, $8 a pound or something. If you're getting it, it's more than that. You can't sell it for 8 and change to make a profit. No. You have to, otherwise, why sell it? You might as well close your doors unless you can make a profit. What's the point?
Right.
So
then you still have to pay for refrigeration, the insurances, the help,
sure,
daily expenses that you have to take care of. And now the cleanliness. We're cleanliness. Now we're taking extra precautions. Sanitizing all the counters every night. Sanitizing, that's an extra expense. It's extra work. It's extra expense. So
sure.
These little things may seem like nothing at the moment right now, but at the end of the day, they all seem to add up. And it's
sure.
a lot of shortages. So.
Right. Now you were telling me too that when things fully open up, it's going to get worse before it gets better, because places now that are not ordering, let's say meat, chicken, and so on, that will open up shortly, hopefully, now they're going to be ordering the same things you're ordering to some extent. And it's going to be even harder to get some of those items to.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to use that much of the product. But let's say we open 100,000 restaurants across the country, or whatever the number is. That's 100,000 people that weren't in the market last week. So that's going to put a bigger strain on the already thinly stretched items that we're getting now. So I would imagine the prices are going to go even higher. It's a potential that could happen unless people get back to work. I think majority of the problem is that they were making more money on unemployment than they are. There's no incentive for them to go back to work. So
I heard about that.
Something's going to be done to stop that. And if that stops, hopefully they can catch up. But it's still going to take 3-4 as a pipeline to get everything back to
right, especially the lower income.
If they get the people who's going.
Right, like if you're going to get $600 on unemployment or $700, whatever it is, and you normally make $300 a week, a lot of people would say, why bother going back to work for $300 when I could sit at home, watch The View, maybe not The View, but sit at home, watch TV, or The Price is Right, and get $600.
Yes, that's what I think a majority of the problem is. That's what the guys are claiming, that people are just not showing up to work. They're like, I'm not risking my life to,
right, but they also
making more now.
Right, but they have to certify that they're looking for a job, and if their employer says, I want them back, and they won't come, they could lose their benefits.
They should, but that's not what I'm hearing from the guys in the market. I don't know for a fact, but I mean, that's what they're saying. Just guys, hundreds of people are just not showing up, and they depend on every one of those people. They're skilled with knives. They know what they're doing. They feed that line.
Yeah.
So when that line breaks down, everything breaks down, and it's
Sure.
unfortunately, when you're the last man on the retail line, you're the one that has to hear all
I
all the
know.
complaints about it. But that's how it goes. But there's people always worse off, and we try to be as fair as we can with it. But we still have to do have to turn a profit so we can keep the lights on.
Now, I heard a while ago that there was going to be a meat shortage, or there was. I haven't been eating a lot of meat. I kind of went vegan. I know I shouldn't tell you that, but I'm eating a little more healthier. And I heard that there was going to be, or was there any kind of shortage with regard to meat? Did it materialize?
Well, there was no one showing up. There was no one showing up at the market. The animals were plentiful, but there was no one. There was no one slaughtering this whole assembly. So they were slaughtering them and burying them because there was no one there working at the markets. Now, in the beginning, when this first happened, people were sick. Hundreds of people were sick with over, and now they're collecting more on unemployment than the other way around. They did have to make a lot of adjustments to a lot of these plants, which they seem to have done. It started getting a little bit better, but now we took a few steps back. And as more places open up, the line gets stretched. Food supplies 50% of the United States with product.
Wow.
So you're talking about one company. When they go down, it's felt throughout the whole market.
Sure. I was watching a news report, and they had companies, just getting rid of milk, just spilling it in a sense, because they didn't have the infrastructure to get it to market. So you were just talking about that. They had the animals, but if you didn't have the people to slaughter the animal or to cut like a butcher to cut them up,
sure,
what a waste.
Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt. So it's hopefully, I'm thinking that by sometime in July.
Yeah.
And I think the president put an executive order on and mandate them to go back to work. So he did that last week, I believe, sometime, and that seemed to lighten things up a little bit. A small drop in the market, but now that other places are opening up, I'm starting to see an upswing again this week.
Now I know that the last time I spoke to you was a while ago, and I think you had a friend. Was it the last name Leonard that came in?
Yes, Gerard Henry, yes.
Right, and I knew his brother, John. It was John, his brother, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I remember he was in the studio with us, and you were on the air. He was seated, and you were talking at that time about the VA, and I know that you were doing some work, working closely with the VA in some respects, trying to, I guess, get them what they were deserving of. You know what I mean? In other words, get them some notoriety, get them
we're trying to bring some attention to the faltering conditions down there.
And has it improved?
Recently, I've seen a lot of local 200s down there. Mario Matera, he's seen what's going on. He's been helping out. And last week, matter of fact, we were down there. We dropped off 700 meals for all the workers. All the guys
That's great.
From my work, we at the VA. We dropped off 700 meals. Me, Gerard, Mario Matera, and we try to keep an eye on the guys as best we can. And we have been reaching out to any of the veterans that were in need of food during this crisis, and we've been supplying a few different organizations with food so they can deliver it to the guys. And we're doing the best we can, trying to keep the community together and, show these guys they're not forgotten about. Like that's our motto, So.
That's a great thing, Donato. I wish more people would see it the way you do, because you not only, talk about it, you're on my show, we're talking about it, but you do something about it. You go out there in the community and you try to help these guys. And who's more deserving, think about it, than our veterans, right? They made so many sacrifices, their family sacrifices. They're now elderly toward the latter part of their life, and they've got to be taken care of properly.
Well, we've done a great job down at the VA. They were very cautious about who they would let in there. The security was really tight. Things were really, they did a fantastic job of keeping people away, so
Sure.
not to make the mistakes that, they let sick and elderly into the nursing homes, and that caused a big problem. So they did a good job of protecting the guys down there, which I was really happy to see when we dropped off the food. Basically, we dropped it off and we were out the door, which was good, because if you really think about it, you never know if you're carrying it or not. So you really don't want to. You don't want to, God forbid, get one of these guys sick. Fatal, where it's a common cold to us. It could be something that we could shake in a few days.
Absolutely.
But these guys are a little weak, so so it was good to see that they did that. Now this up and coming Tuesday was scheduled to deliver like 400 meals down there. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have our guys going. The masks, the gloves. We're all we're very conscious of what's going on. So
good. Now I want to give a shout out to.
We just involved with the police department in New York City, and we made in in 2.5 weeks. We made 4,700 sandwiches for them, and we sent them all over the place. Those guys were delivering them to all the hospitals because they recognized that they were on the front lines, and they were very appreciative of those poor nurses and doctors. So
every time I have you on my show, I get very hungry because you're talking about the meat and sandwiches, and I just want to get something to eat. But now I want to give a shout out to Congressman Zeldin. I know you've done work for him in the past. Now I know it's harder, I guess, to do anything because everything's pretty much locked down. So you haven't really been able to, I guess, work like you have in the past on his campaign, correct?
Well, not right now, but I think we're going to be kicking it up soon. The congressman is, man, I tell you, you don't meet a nicer man. He's got skin in the game on the island. His kids go to school here. He's out there trying to get masks. You call him up, he answers the phone, and he's just a great guy. I mean, I can't say enough of good things about him.
He's a veteran himself. He was a veteran himself.
He is. He's a combat veteran. He's got skin in the game, and he talks the talk, and he walks the walk. And, he's someone that we admire as a group, and rightfully so.
Now I hope things open up because we're going to have somewhat of an important election come November, right? The president. Yeah. Lee's running, of course, and a number of other offices are up for grabs. So hopefully, if things open up, let's say even July, August, September, then you're going to have crunch time. Then you're going to have to get out there. I think the Democrats still haven't picked their person, right?
Right.
So we don't know who Lee's running against yet. We have some people. We have an idea. I saw a commercial the other day for someone who's running, but you said that's still the primary hasn't been determined. Who's going to get?
Yeah, usually it's September, about June or July, and this year I think everything's running late. So.
Yeah, and that's for the Democrats, of course. We know Lee's running for the Republicans, so it's an important. It's an important. Now, a lot of times people say, you know what, President Trump may not carry New York, but it doesn't matter. Get out there and vote. Get out there and vote because
we can't complain if we don't vote, right?
Exactly. I always tell people, did you vote? Yeah, then I don't want to hear it.
If you can't complain you can't sit on the sideline and Monday morning quarterback. Anybody can be a Monday morning quarterback. Get out there and make the changes. That's
and there are a lot of important.
That's how you got to be.
Yeah, and there are a lot of important. I call down ballot. In other words, you have the president. Obviously, that's an important vote. And whether you think he's going to carry New York or not, you still vote because Lee's running, and a lot of other people are running, local town offices. So it's very important to get out there. People know how I vote. I'm a Republican, but I still look. Judges, people that are running for judge, I look. And I want to make sure, especially with judges, because it's not always party.
We have John Flanagan retiring, and we have Mario Matera running line. So we're doing a big push for Mario. Mario's another wonderful person that I happen to know all my life, and he's another person I can think any more highly of a person than I can think of him or Lee. They're just really down to earth people, and we're going to make a big push to get Mario in there. And when you get the right people in office, you can make the changes. At least you have people listening to what's going on the island, and try to. Yeah. And try to help the people.
Lee's been on my show before. He's also when I used to do radio. So the next time you see Lee, tell him as we get closer to the election, you got to get him to come on my show. I'll give him a call too, but I want him to come on. I want him to address the people, to get the word out, especially in this COVID world where look at the woman who was running against AOC. She was a Republican running against AOC. She dropped out of the race. She said she couldn't get any traction. You can't get out there. You can't shake hands. You can't have a rally. Right now, how many rallies President Trump is passing up because of COVID-19? Sure. He was every other week he was here, he's there. Biden's in his basement. So these guys have to get out, get the word out. Let's hear what they have to say. I kind of know who I'm voting for already, but get the word out. And in politics, and that's why you do a lot of good things. You feed people and you're involved in the political process. So two very, very important things. Donato, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And
we appreciate you. Thank you so much for what you do.
And I'll have you back on.
Fighting,
Thank you. I like to hear that. And I'll have you on in about a month or so, and you could tell us, hopefully, things are going well. Let's hope we won't have to keep wearing masks. And maybe we're not going to be shaking hands in a month, but maybe we don't have to wear a mask. That would be nice, because sometimes I can't breathe with that thing on. So.
Yeah. Could you have a picture today when you could walk into a bank with a mask on?
It's funny. I did a post. I said, I can't wait to go until the bank's open, and I walk in with my mask and I hand them a note. Now,
could you ever imagine?
Now the police must be having fits, because you're saying, we're looking for a guy that meets this description, but he's got a mask on. It's very, very difficult, but you gotta protect people. Donato, you have
a hard job as it is, right?
It is. Thank you, Donato. You have a great day.
We appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, in the last couple of minutes, very briefly, I just want to give you a rundown. The court system here in Suffolk County and Nassau, to some extent, they're still closed, although I can't say they're fully closed. And, it says, God bless the historic space event taking place today. I think it was 4:33. Did it happen? It's taking place today, 4:33. It's a great American accomplishment. I think it's the first time in over 10 years.
Since 2011.
Since 2011 that
American
company is taking astronauts into space. A lot of other people have been taken into space. I think the Russians, China. Only the Russians, not China. They probably want to do it, but the Russians have done it. We got to get back into this the space race. Okay. Also, I wrote a book called Divorce: A Practical Guide. You take a look at it. A lot of useful information from soup to nuts. So I always say, when you go see an attorney or you see a doctor or an accountant, you want to be a good consumer. And the way to do that is to have knowledge. Now, very quickly, the courts have been open to the extent that we can have attorney conferences. I had a hearing a couple of weeks ago regarding an order of protection where litigants were brought into the proceeding on the telephone. I think on Friday, which is the day before this show will air, on Saturday we air, judges are allowed to get back into the courthouse, breathe a little life into the building. Is it going to be open like in the past anytime soon? I doubt it, because I've seen days where you go to family court and that was like a cattle car. There were people wall to wall. I don't know if you're going to see that for a long, long time. Maybe not until after there's a vaccine or until we can comfortably say COVID is not a threat anymore. Now, I don't know when that's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be at all. But we have to get back to life. We got to get people working. We have to have people who can take precautions to open up their store, to open up their practice, because people are suffering out there. There are some businesses that might not come back. So I will be periodically talking about the court system, because that's what I do. I'm an attorney, and the court system is important because people, it could be a traffic ticket, it could be a criminal charge, it could be divorce, family court, it could be personal injury, a car accident. People need to avail themselves of the process. And the way to do that often is through the court system. So it's starting to open up. I know the people in the court system are working very hard to get things moving. Very, very important. Check out Finding Common Ground every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on Altice, channel 115, and also on YouTube. Go to Phil Jusino. You can see old shows. Also my website, jusinolaw.com. You can go in there and you can see old shows. You have a great day. Take care and be safe.